Young Ilias rarely ventured into the overgrown edges of the old estate grounds. The woods pressed close here, ancient and silent, and the air always felt thick, weighted with the scent of damp earth and decay. It was near the crumbling stone wall, half hidden amongst a riot of nettles and brambles, that he found it. A teddy bear. Not new, not clean, but worn and matted, one button eye missing, its fur the color of faded parchment. It lay there as if waiting, its remaining eye, black and vacant, seemingly fixed on the gray sky above. Ilias, usually timid, felt an inexplicable pull towards the forgotten thing. He picked it up, dusting away the clinging soil. It was heavier than it looked, carrying an odd, inert stillness. He named him Teddy. Back in his room, the old manor house groaned around him. Rain lashed against the tall windows, echoing the restless stirrings within the house's stone heart. Ilias sat the bear on his worn armchair. He talked to Teddy about school, about the loneliness that sometimes settled upon him in this isolated place, about the quiet, watchful way his parents moved through the house. He didn't expect an answer, of course, not from a forgotten, mud-stained toy. But then, as the storm outside intensified, a low rasping sound filled the room. It wasn't the wind, nor the old house settling. It was coming from the bear. Yes, it whispered, this sound like dry leaves scattering across the stone. Ilias froze, his blood turning to ice. The bear hadn't moved, its single eye still fixed ahead, yet the sound, the word, hung in the air, undeniably real. You get up. Ilias stammered, clutching the edges of his chair. The bear remained still for a long moment, the silence stretching thin and brittle. Then came the rasping whisper again, softer this time, more intimate. I remember everything you forgot. Over the next few days, the rain seemed unending, trapping Ilias inside with the unnerving presence of the talking bear. Teddy's voice was a low, steady drone, a chilling counterpoint to the rhythmic drumming of rain against the glass. He spoke of a time before Ilias remembered clearly. A time when screams weren't just sounds from the wind. A time when the silences in the house were not peaceful, but heavy with unspoken pain. Teddy described hands that weren't gentle, voices that weren't kind, punishments that went beyond scolding. He spoke of bruises that bloomed like dark flowers, of fear that tasted like metal, of hiding places sought not for games, but for survival. He described Ilias himself, smaller, more fragile, eyes wide with a terror he'd since buried so deep he'd forgotten its shape. The bear spoke of Ilias's parents, but not as the distant, reserved figures he knew. He described them as architects of that fear, overseers of that pain. He detailed specific incidents, things Ilias could recall, yet which resonated with a deep, buried ache in his bones. It was a story of a childhood stolen, traded for a fragile, false peace. It made you forget, Teddy rasped, his voice gaining a thin, sharp edge. They built walls around the truth, brick by painful brick. But I was here. I saw. I felt the terror pressed into the fabric, the tears soaked into the stuffing. Ilias listened, horrified, mesmerized. He wanted to disbelieve, to throw the bear back into the mud where he found it. But the details, the raw emotional weight of Teddy's words, chipped away at his denial. A cold fury began to stir within him, a slow-burning ember ignited by the bear's relentless recounting. Teddy's single eye seemed to glow faintly in the dim light of the room. "They are downstairs now," the bear whispered one evening, as Ilias sat, pale and trembling, clutching the toy. In the drawing room, laughing, forgetting what they did. "But you remember now, don't you? You feel it." Ilias did feel it. A surge of nausea mixed with a consuming rage he'd never known. He looked at the bear. His plush form seemed to ripple slightly, a dark energy radiating from it. What should I do?" Elias whispered, his voice hoarse. The bear's head tilted slightly, an impossible movement for a stuffed toy. "Make them remember it, brave. Make them pay." Clutching Teddy tightly, Elias descended the grand, creaking staircase. Each step was heavy, not with his weight, but with the crushing burden of the bear's revelations. He found his parents in the drawing room, illuminated by the flickering gaslight. They looked up, surprised to see him, their expressions shifting from mild annoyance to something colder, wary. "Yes, what is it?" his father asked, his voice flat. Elias stood on the threshold, the bear held out slightly before him. He saw them through a haze of the bear's words, their faces twisting into the cruel visages Teddy had described. "I remember," Elias said, his voice unnaturally calm. "I remember everything Teddy told me." His mother's hand flew to her mouth. His father's face hardened. "What nonsense are you talking about? Go back to your room." But Elias didn't move. He felt the bear warm against his chest, felt a strange strength surge through him. "You hurt me," he said, the words quiet, but carrying the force of a breaking dam. "You hurt me for years, and you thought I'd just forget." A look of panic flickered across his parents' faces, quickly replaced by a desperate attempt at authority. His father stood up, taking a step towards him. "That's enough, Elias." Just as he reached for Elias, the air around them seemed to thicken, growing heavy and cold. A guttural growl, deeper and more monstrous than anything Elias had ever heard, erupted from the bear. The drawing room lights flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. His parents recoiled, fear replacing their anger. They saw something in Elias's eyes, or perhaps in the bear clutched in his arms, that was utterly alien. What happened next is unclear, swallowed by the chaos and the darkness that descended upon the house. Some say there were screams, not of a child, but of adults. Some say the house fell silent, the rain still falling, but the life within extinguished. All that is known for certain is that Elias was later found alone in the drawing room, the room in disarray, his parents gone. And beside him, with single button eye seeming to gleam with dark satisfaction in the returning silence, sat the teddy bear, a velvet witness. Its lament had become a reckoning.